Good morning, everyone. I'm Neil Hadra, CEO of the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation. Thanks for being part of a groundbreaking event for Washtenaw County and for community foundations nationwide. Now, those of you who know me, being a fast talker is usually a liability for me, but right now it's the only way I'm going to cover a lot of exciting content. So let's start with the concept of impact investing and why the foundation is engaged in it. As Washtenaw County's dedicated endowment, we sit at the cross-section of community and financial capital. We want to leverage this unique position to improve more lives in the community. That's where impact investing comes in. Impact investing refers to the practice of investing in community projects that are intended to generate a financial return as well as a tangible social or community benefit. Unlike our grants, investments are intended to be repaid to the community foundation and can be recycled back to the community through additional investments. We started our impact investing journey through pilot loans to the Ann Arbor Art Center. Those early loans were catalyzed by Fran Lowson, a donor advisor and a key innovation partner of ours. Based on those successful pilots, our board decided we should align more of our capital with our mission. For decades, we have been issuing grants and scholarships generated through returns on our invested assets. But the invested assets themselves weren't directly aligned with our mission to serve Washtenaw County. Our board has now dedicated 1% of those invested assets towards local impact investments. We next commissioned original research to understand how capital flows in our community and where impact investments can make the greatest difference. Our 2020 Washtenaw County Capital Research Report is the first research of its kind to establish an independent and objective understanding of the local investing ecosystem. We engaged both quantitative and qualitative expertise, the Urban Institute of Washington, D.C., Revalue of Ypsilanti, and Entry Point of Ann Arbor to produce a comprehensive analysis of Washtenaw County. Several key themes emerged. Mainstream financial capital in Washtenaw County underinvests in areas with high poverty and neighborhoods where people of color are a majority, resulting in persistent, inequitable local economies. We hope to change these conditions by putting our money where our mouths are as the foundation and by finding other partners to join us. In this context, we can all be part of the solution. Another key theme is that there are untapped local investment opportunities that could more equitably leverage the approximately $2 billion of capital at work in Washtenaw County in any given year. Locally owned small businesses constitute 70% of the county's corporate ecosystem, and locally owned businesses keep more money recirculating within the county. It's a virtuous cycle. Our research also revealed that 5 key local sectors, caregiving, private educational services, food supply, real estate, and independently owned Main Street businesses could leverage over $600 million in additional growth capital in the coming years if such capital were available and accessible. Based on our extensive research, a group of staff and trustees, led by board officer Karen Andrews, has been guiding our impact investing toward the following vision. With a focus on racial and social equity, all neighborhoods and communities in Washtenaw County have the same opportunity for generational human dignity with equitable access to our collective community wealth. Our rapidly growing endowment, from $75 million to $185 million in just the past 5 years, gives us the critical mass we need to pursue this exciting vision. Our first $1.7 million of impact investments is through 4 vehicles, including the CCM Community Impact Bond Fund, which in Washtenaw County supports affordable housing. Our initial investments have also attracted several regional platforms to Washtenaw County, and we are really excited to showcase 3 of them today for you. Michigan Women Forward invests in women-owned businesses, the Fair Food Fund fights food deserts, and IFF accelerates economic opportunity through mission-based lending. IFF is a CDFI, which stands for Community Development Financial Institution. CDFIs are U.S. Treasury certified organizations that provide financing targeted to low-income communities. CDFIs can play an important complementary role alongside banks, credit unions, venture funds, and other capital providers, including individual investors. All of these actors can help reshape how capital flows to empower more of Washtenaw County to stand on its own. The foundation's role is to bring people and organizations together, to cross sector lines, and to identify allies. Our research reveals that many opportunities exist to both make money and make good in service of a more equitable local economy. That brings us to the link between an equitable economy and philanthropy, which may not be intuitive, but at its best, philanthropy should address systemic issues rather than apply band-aids. The foundation believes we can play a productive, cross-sector role in enabling more residents from more neighborhoods in our county to build wealth that in turn enhances their families, their neighborhoods, and ultimately our community. We are embracing impact investing as a major new tool for long-term change, and we're not alone. We have asked a philanthropic luminary, Eileen Heisman, to give us perspective on impact investing nationally. Following Eileen's keynote, you will learn more about the interactive portion of our program where you can engage with our local investees. Our keynote speaker, Eileen Heisman, is president and CEO of the National Philanthropic Trust, the largest independent provider of donor-advised funds. Eileen is widely recognized across the country for her expertise on philanthropy and charitable giving, and she also has ties to Washtenaw County. Eileen has her master's in social work from the University of Michigan and serves on the school's advisory board. We are so grateful to have Eileen set the stage for our conversations today. Thank you, Eileen.
That's great. Thank you, Neil. It's great to be invited, and I wish I could be there. I actually had a fantasy of flying out and landing at the Detroit airport and being in Ann Arbor today, but instead I'm doing it from my house outside of Philadelphia. There's some pictures of me before COVID at the big house, and I just read this morning because I get an Ann Arbor news on my email that you're giving vaccines in the big house now, so it probably looks a lot different than it did that day. I lived in Ann Arbor from 1977 to 1978 when I was getting my master's degree. It was before Zingerman's, and it was also before impact investment was even a common word. And so I'm going to talk today about NPT a little bit and our journey. I'm also going to give an overview of impact investment, some statistics, and then how we navigated it from a national platform. Then what I think the future is going to hold. Though, I think in some ways the future is here, but impact investments, I think, is in its nascency, and I think it's going to be far more integrated into not just philanthropic portfolios, but individual portfolios as millennials grow and mature. And I'm a diehard baby boomer, you can probably tell, and I think we've been a good launcher of this, but I think it's going to become a much different marketplace in the next 20 years. I worked at the Philadelphia Foundation, the community foundation where I grew up, and I'm still here in Philadelphia, though I've lived in several other places around the country. And I was their first development officer between 87 and 92. So I'm a big fan of community foundations, and I'm really fond of the expertise. Fond is too light of a word, the incredible expertise they have of the local community and the needs. Capital is, access to capital is one of the most important things you can do when you want to grow and invest in a community. And charitable capital is actually a really limited part of what you can look at when you're looking at investing in a community. I also want to say, for those of you who noticed my last name, I am related to the Heisman Football Trophy. I got my warmest greeting from the University of Michigan athletic department at the football game I attended as an adult. I actually didn't even know what Big Ten football was like when I got to Ann Arbor, but it doesn't take long to figure it out. I just want to say that I think that you getting involved in your local community it couldn't be a more important element to this. And the timing of it post-COVID is really, really, really critical. A lot of small charities, but also small businesses suffered a lot and even closed. So access to capital is one of the most important things that we need. And if you watch the the loan program, and how much money of it initially, the first element of it went to big companies. I think it was tragic in a way that small businesses didn't get more access to it. Neil defined impact investment. I'll just say it again. And this is from GIN, which is the Global Impact Investment Network, which is a national trade association, which does a lot of research on impact investments. Their impact investments are made with the intention to generate a positive, measurable social and environmental impact alongside a financial return. And I think there was an understanding or kind of a stereotype several years ago that if you went into an impact investment, you were sacrificing returns. But if you look at the data in the last 5 years, it's often mostly not true. And you can get really excellent returns and make social impact at the same time and not feel like you're sacrificing anything. In fact, you're getting, a double bottom line. Interestingly enough, if you look at these statistics, $715 billion exist in impact investments in 2019, and it's probably larger in 2021, which was an enormous increase from 15 billion in 2016. I actually did a lot of math here about, which is a 47%, it times 47, a multiple of 47. So that's really a kind of an impossible, it's like almost 5,000% increase. So we're looking at that now, and I think we're going to even see more trajectory that looks like that. If you look at these two numbers in the next two bullet points, 85% of individual investors are interested in sustainable and impact investment, and 95% of millennials. I don't know if the delta there is because is the baby boomer or just the way in which these ideas are presented to investors. One of the things I know from my experience in charitable giving, and I teach a graduate course in philanthropy and fundraising at the University of Pennsylvania, and I have for about 16 years, is that when somebody's really interested in something, they're willing to put their money there. And so the difference between overall investors and the millennials is whether or not, I think, how they see the world. I think baby boomers see the world in a much more siloed way. And this is our money for investment. This is our money for doing good. I think the millennials have the great benefit of looking at a much more integrated view of the world, which is their money, whether it's meant for their long term, for their retirement, or for now, or inside a charitable vehicle or not. They're interested in deploying it for social benefit, not just in a charitable vehicle. So it's really important that for those of you who are listening, who are advisors, that I think impact investment is going to continue to be present and emerging inside the financial services world. I get an online newsletter every morning called Fund Fire. And in the last year, I can say that people that get hired for these ESG investing jobs are multiplying by great numbers. It used to be a lot of big companies had one or two people. Now they have teams of people. So we're going to see them responding more and more to the millennial demand for this. It's really interesting when you look at the diversity of what you can invest in and impact investments. It's not a single thing. It can be housing, and this list transportation, food, agriculture, economic development, gender, and health. And so whatever your interest is, you can really look at that in a very targeted way. And if you only have a small amount of money, you can put a small amount in it. But if you have a large amount of money, you can really, really make a difference. Next slide. Thanks. One of the things that I learned, and going to social work school, and is a way in which you can say you're interested in social change. And what I think I didn't understand at the time I made that choice is that philanthropy is actually a very small sliver of of our gross domestic product, is 2%. And of the $450 billion that was given in the year 2019, which is the last full year we have counted, that's 2% domestic product. And if you just look at half of 2020, just half, the global capital markets raised 5.5 trillion. And that's just half the year. So if you actually cut this green slice in half, it's the amount of capital that's available in the private market is not to be compared. So if you think of the opportunity for doing good, not just from the philanthropic sector, but what's happening in investment in business and private equity and hedge fund, all different kinds of opportunity in the private markets, the opportunity to do good from private capital is an unbelievable multiple. And I think when you look at the opportunity for impact investments and the kind of work that the Community Foundation is doing, hopefully that we're doing, and private foundations are involved as well, that there's, most investment firms are looking at ESG. So we're looking at a way to take a portion of this blue part of this chart and make it available for social benefit and also a return. And I think, I don't know where the end point of this is going to be, but I think it's going to be a really evolving marketplace for a very long time. Next slide. A history of ESG. So when I first got started in ESG, the Ford Foundation people who I talked to told me that they had been doing it for 40 years. So 1967, inside a private foundation, you could do something called a program-related investment. So instead of an investment in the traditional stock market, you could actually invest in something in the community in which there would be a return. It was very much experimental then, but it started to grow in interest in PRIs. Interestingly, those of you that are philanthropy nerds could actually count towards the 5% payout of a private foundation. When I first was a younger person and in this business, the way in which social investing was described is also, usually it was a screen. The screen would be something like eliminating alcohol, eliminating tobacco, eliminating weapons, or gambling, or terrorism, or human rights, or labor issues. So you would look at an investment portfolio and screen out those things that you didn't want your money to go towards. And that was a pretty common way to look at it, probably for a good 10 years or even 15 years. And even now, there's mutual funds that are basically screening things. Fast forward in the last 10 years, we're looking at much more proactive opportunity, where instead of saying what we don't want to do, you're saying really focusing on what you do want to do. And in the last couple of years, the UN created sustainable development goals that are a lot for philanthropy, but more for impact investment in 17 different areas. And when you look at these goals on a chart, it looks a lot like the chemical chart, but it actually defines areas in which you actively can intentionally invest. And they actually have benchmarks for all of these different areas, and these are global. And they actually have numbers that they think that we need to invest in to move the needle. And so we went from kind of saying what we didn't want to do to saying what we do want to do. And when I listened to Neil and the focus that he's taken, and the Urban Institute and the Washtenaw County, I think it's really, really a thoughtful way to look at what are the things in Washtenaw County and the region where Ann Arbor is that you actually literally want to invest in. And you do not have to invest in these inside a philanthropic product. And in fact, the more power I think is going to come through when individual investors are looking at their investment portfolios and investing from there. I just want to say that when we began, some of the things that I've been really interested in personally is microlending. I'm not a big fan of microlending to farmers in developing countries. Those of you that might have ever gone on Kiva.org, Kiva is a place you can invest $25 if you want to. And it used to be that Kiva was really global, and now it's actually very domestic and has a lot of interest in looking at women and minority-owned businesses. There's solar panel investment, wind farms investment, carbon offsets. There's a really incredible body of work going on in Africa and developing countries where young girls would have to leave school when they got their periods, to create menstrual products from indigenous materials in that part of the world that will allow girls to continue to go to school. And so the range of things that you can really look at are the whole range of kind of the human condition and ways in which you want to make the world a better place. There's a member of my husband's family who's a kind of a serial entrepreneur. And the normal philanthropic ideas don't really resonate with him. But when I talked to him about impact investment, and I did it by giving him a gift certificate to Kiva actually for a holiday gift one year, he got so excited that he could invest in something, get the money paid back, reinvest in something else to keep the capital moving. Next. NPT, interestingly, so I'm the CEO of National Philanthropic Trust. We're about 25 years old. I got there as the first outside staff person. I was the third person on staff, and we had zero in the bank, and our focus was to manage donor-advised funds. We now have a staff of about 130. We have over $16 billion in assets. We have 2 charities in the UK, and we've made grants all over the country and the world. In 2010, we had our first $1 billion of assets under management, and our board decided they wanted to learn more and figure out what it is that, we're turning this corner. What does that mean for NPT? So there's a woman who's a fellow at the Stanford Business School and their Center for Philanthropy and Society, Lucy Bernholtz. And I call her a futurist in philanthropy. Every year at the end of the year, she has predictions of what's going to happen in the next 12 months. So she came and spoke to our board that year in 2010, and she talked about impact investments. So after she left, the board called me in and gave me a directive that I should explore impact investments and how NPT could get involved. At that point in time, there was very little we could do with the way in which capital was getting deployed. There were big chunks of capital that were kept invested for long periods of time. And for those of you that know donor advised funds, money moves in and out, small amounts, you need a lot of liquidity. And so what the kind of capital impact investment was looking at and our needs in DAFs was quite different. But that was a long time ago. Fast forward now, we've gone through 3 generations of offerings. We went from doing nothing to offering notes, the Calvert notes, which I think are great, and a number of others. And then fast forward another few years, there all of a sudden ETFs came out that had an impact angle. So we started looking at ETFs, which are really easy to buy and sell and could be inside our donor advised fund accounts for short periods of time or long periods of time. We did that for a while. And then a couple of years ago, we hired an outside firm, a lot like Neil did, and looking at what you could do in Washtenaw County. And we came up with these 4 portfolios that we're offering to our donors who come to us directly and are interested in the impact investment opportunities while the money is sitting inside their donor advised fund. And we had to make it a national platform. So we're not looking at a single community. In fact, underneath of these, money's going out to a variety of communities around the country. One was economic mobility, the ability for people to move up in the economic world and to make sure that people are getting educated and that the opportunities that those of us in mainstream get often that not everybody does are available. Environmental stewardship, a gender lens, companies that are led and have leadership of women, and then broad social impact, which is sort of a general fund if you're not sure what you want to do. Interestingly enough, we just started a DAF for our employees, and those employees that have opened a donor advised fund, almost 100% of our employees are in the impact investment options, including me. I have 100% of my DAF in impact investments. So we know that there's a really great interest. The beauty of this is the money goes in and immediately, while you're waiting to give a grant away, it used to be that you didn't think about the money doing well until the grant went out, that while you're inside the donor advised fund, the money is being deployed for social benefit. Next slide. I just want to say that community foundations have the beauty and honor of really knowing communities, knowing their donors. As a national sponsor of DAFs, we aren't in that position. When COVID hit the country of a year and a half ago, and people were interested in supporting COVID, we sent them to their local community foundations. There's no way that we could replace the intelligence and the thoughtfulness and the knowledge. And so we think that community foundations are really uniquely perched to do really, really great things locally. I'm a big fan of CDFIs that Neil mentioned, community development finance institutions. And CDFIs give access to capital for people that traditionally cannot get capital from banks. So when you want to start a small business and you want to go to a bank with a business plan, if you're too small, they're not interested. And so where do you start that capital? You can borrow from friends and family, but if you have a local CDFI, they can really, really make things happen for you. A small business access to capital we know is really limited. I think during COVID, this really got amplified with all the problems with the loans. And so this notion that capital can be out there to help small businesses of all different kinds, which help communities in employment. They're good for neighborhoods. They're good for, that feeling of when you walk down the street, there's an incredible opportunity to be really present in your community with your neighbors. All those things are really, really important. I just want to say, the Ann Arbor Community Foundation's effort, that these 4 entities, the Community Capital, the Fair Food Network, the Women, or the Michigan Women Forward, and the CDFI IFF are all things that they've not only vetted, but I think they know are places that really need and want capital. I'm a fundraiser by training, and it's really hard sometimes to get people to the table for things that they don't understand. So I think impact investment, when you hear the term, it doesn't mean anything to you, but when you look through and see the actual organizations and who they're benefiting, it makes it real, and it makes your connection of what the change in the community really, really different. I really tip my hat to your program today, because I think you're going to be doubling your impact. You're going to be learning exactly what's going to be happening. You're going to be hearing from the people that are delivering it. And you're going to be able to see what kind of impact and financial information you can get back about what the good that your investment is doing. I really think over time that impact investment is going to become more complex and more integrated in traditional finance. I think the distinction is going to start to disappear, and I think that investors are going to be looking at this. There's a thing called greenwashing, which is when the marketplace is telling you things that are impact investment, but they're really not, and they're just taking data and making it look good. So I'll give you a warning. This sounds like it's all wonderful, but look for greenwashing, ask greenwashing questions, and when you're hearing what the investments are and the kind of data you're going to get back to learn more about your impact, I think you're going to get good answers. When you're local, you can watch it much more carefully. I want to really congratulate Neil and the team, and I want to thank you for inviting me. Go Blue! I've gotten to Ann Arbor, back to Ann Arbor twice a year in the last few years because I'm on the National Advisory Committee for the School of Social Work, and I'm hoping that I have a chance to meet a lot of you. I'm going to close my remarks and really tip my hat, and because I think what you're doing is really important. And Jillian Rosen is going to be next. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Eileen. You've given us a compelling context for exploring our impact investing opportunities in Washtenaw County. My name is Jillian Rosen, and in my role as the Vice President for Community Investment at the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation, I have the privilege of overseeing ways to leverage our capital for impact in Washtenaw County. As Neil shared, we are leveraging the power of our endowment to mobilize not only grants and scholarships, but also by becoming a local mission investor. We want to shape an equitable Washtenaw County where access to economic opportunity in the form of investment capital is not constrained by race, concentrated wealth, or geography. Creating intergenerational impact is a long-term venture, and so our investments have a long-term time frame than grants. Michigan Women Forward, Fair Food Fund, and IFF will each present concurrent and repeating sessions at 12, 12:15, and 12:30. You can come and go among these sessions. You can also visit with our Impact Investing Committee in a booth where you can learn more about our approach to investments. And Neil will also be in the lounge with other AAC staff and trustees to interact in any way. Within the booths, you can download information and ask questions. You can also leave a virtual business card to have your questions addressed at a later time. So if you can't stay in a session, you have many more ways to learn. At 12:45, we will be prompted to go to the lounge for some brief concluding remarks by our Impact Investing Committee Chair, Karen Andrews. We promise the program will conclude by 1 p.m. On the screen, you will see instructions for accessing the booths. You can click the exhibit booth button at the bottom of your screen, and there is also a button to the right on the banner. You will also see a notification message across your screen. Again, the three investees will repeat their presentations at each 15-minute block. So you can hear all three in any order, and you can also come chat with our investment committee members or other community foundation leaders. Enjoy these interactions, and thank you for being with us. I will see you in the lounge at 12:45.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lolita Nunn. I'm the Investor Relations Officer for Fair Food Fund, the impact investing arm of Fair Food Network. I'm here with my colleague, Mark Watson, who's the Senior Investment Strategist. And thank you all for taking time to learn more about the work that we're doing. Fair Food Network started 11 years ago with our signature program, Double Up Food Bucks. This program is geared towards supporting anyone that has SNAP, also known as food stamps, by providing additional fruits and vegetables into their homes. Double Up Food Bucks provides dollar for dollar match. So if someone goes into a participating location and buys $20 worth of fruits and vegetables, that money is matched, helping to drive access of healthy foods into homes that need it the most. That program started at Eastern Market in Detroit and has grown to over 800 locations in 27 states. To grow that opportunity of creating additional health and to also grow wealth in our communities, Fair Food Fund, the impact investing arm, started 7 years ago, started in New England, supporting the viability of farmers, and has since evolved and been reimagined to support enterprises along the entire food chain, not only farmers, grocery stores, restaurants, distributors, We really want to reimagine how capital is used to support our community. The work that we're doing really is geared towards addressing the problem of health and wealth gaps in our communities, which has only been increased due to the pandemic. We have intentionality of supporting our BIPOC and women-led organizations. With the opportunity, we see that food is the one thing that connects us all. It is essential in every community. It is essential for a thriving community. Fair Food Fund, as I mentioned, started 7 years ago, and within the last 2 years has been reimagined to support entrepreneurs in our communities with that lens of equity. We want to provide a holistic approach, so not only flexible catalytic capital with great terms, but also wraparound technical assistance, providing enterprises with pre and post TA. Our approach is to enter into a community as a place-based model to work alongside the folks who are doing the great work in the community, bringing this flexible capital, not only raising capital local in Michigan, in Washtenaw County, also tapping into the national resources and being able to bring those funds to support the needs of the local community. We will deal source with intentionality of an equity lens. Our goal is that 50%, at least 50% of our investments will go to support BIPOC and women-led organizations. That business assistance that we see is ever so critical, and deal making with local investors. IFF and Michigan Women Forward, 2 other great partners that are in this investor salon, being able to work with them, work with banks, work with CDFIs, so that we bring the best opportunities to the enterprises. Along with the support that we've received from Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation, we are able to bring this work to Washtenaw County. I will touch on that our goal is impact first. We do offer, and I'll get into this in just a few minutes, the social impact notes have a small return, but our goal is impact first. Our goal is to support BIPOC and women-led organizations. We do this through a holistic approach. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we have ability to bring SNAP when we're working with grocery stores, farmers markets, ensuring that communities receive double the amount of fresh food, driving access. Local strength, there's synergy that's created when you're working alongside the folks who are doing great work already, being able to be additive to the system. And this is a model change that we're happy to bring to Washtenaw County. As I mentioned, the catalytic flexible capital that we bring alongside wraparound technical assistance, meeting these enterprises where they are, getting them to the point of financing, providing financing, and then also follow-on technical assistance that may be needed. It's a gap that's always missed. We see that folks get technical assistance, maybe financing, but then there's that follow-on piece that's ever so critical as well. An example of this work is Cooking with Q. Q came to our Brand Accelerator training and event, I'll say, back in 2019, pre the Cooking with Q restaurant. And we stayed in touch with her. Q opened up her great restaurant in Detroit on Woodward, and then the pandemic hit. She went from $20,000 a month to $5,000 a month in revenue because of the pandemic. We were able to come in, provide Q with one-on-one consulting. Mark Watson, who's on this call, worked alongside Q, helping her to tap into her social network. We were able to help her pivot, increase her home delivery service, land a contract with the city of Detroit, and also provide her with funding, helping her to survive and now thrive through the pandemic. Q is generating anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 a month annually in revenue. We're able to do this work through a combination of grants and social impact notes. Our 2 offerings, the 5-year at 1.5% and a 10-year at 2%. The grants go to support that technical assistance, the one-on-one coaching, and then the social impact notes are where we're able to redeploy to support these food enterprises. Our work is focused in New England. We're in Michigan. We're in the cusp of going into Camden. And right now in Washtenaw County specifically, we have 2 pipeline deals that we are working on to support enterprises here locally in our community. This is going to end the presentation. We'll have a few moments for questions and answers. I just want to leave you with the work that we're doing is really providing healthy food access. The work that we're doing is driving economic viability, sparking job creation, and creating wealth in our communities.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's so lovely to virtually meet you. My name is Yi Wei, and I serve as the Vice President of Impact Capital at IFF. And Chris?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Ewell. I lead IFF's work in Michigan and Ohio. I'm based in the Detroit market. My journey to IFF has kind of been a winding one, but I started off, I was a commercial banker for about a decade, then pivoted and did impact investing work at the Skillman Foundation in Detroit. Went and worked at Quicken Loans for a while, leading up their community investment work, but then pivoted to IFF about 4 years ago, frankly, because I view IFF as one of the most dynamic community change platforms in the country. And as a matter of fact, when I was at Skillman, helped invest in starting IFF's office in Detroit. So very excited about the work we do. And I hope as Yi and I get through this presentation, you guys get excited as well.
Great, thanks, Chris. So first, a little bit of background around IFF. IFF was actually birthed out of a community foundation in Chicago, the Chicago Community Trust in 1988. The program manager, Trinetta Logue, was asked to figure out how she could finance capital expenditures for nonprofits. And at that time, and still often today, philanthropy is not really well set up to do financing for nonprofits. So she went to the banks. And she tells the story of how she was laughed out of the rooms at banks when she raised that she wanted to finance nonprofits serving low-income communities. And that led to the birth of the Illinois Facilities Fund, which was later shortened to IFF once IFF became an organization that served the entire Midwest. And IFF's theory of change is really that responsible debt financing can lead to significant and sustained growth for nonprofits. And it will enable them to increase their financial sustainability by building net assets, their financial flexibility by leveraging their net assets, and ultimately they gain more control over their space and their programming. A lot of the nonprofits we serve have very space-specific needs. For example, early childhood education centers, health clinics, grocery stores, and it's not just a blank box that they need to operate in. So if they have high quality facilities, they can achieve better programming outcomes. So IFF is really here to be a gap filler between the commercial bank sector and philanthropy. And ultimately, we believe that flexible, patient, long-term capital will be in their interest. We are a CDFI, a community development financial institution. So as many of you may know, we are a lender, but IFF is not just a lender. We also have a robust 25-person real estate consulting team to help nonprofit leaders figure out what they need with respect to their real estate. On the other side of the shop, the Social Impact Accelerator, there are a lot of wraparound services. And it's really a recognition that capital alone is not sufficient. IFF has a pretty broad and growing footprint. We lend across 10 states in the Midwest. Our largest 3 sectors are affordable housing, education, and healthcare, but we will lend into any nonprofit sector that serves low income and special needs communities. Last year, we hit the $1 billion threshold in terms of the amount of capital we have deployed, and our balance sheet stands around $500 million. Chris, do you want to talk about why IFF Capital is unique?
Yeah, so there's several things that make us unique. First and foremost, even though we do lend on real estate and fixed assets, we are a non-appraisal based lender. We feel that appraisals do kind of perpetuate systemic bias. They kind of become a de facto redlining tool because they prevent capital from going to the nonprofits in the neighborhoods and in the cities where they're needed most. And so we remove that, but we're still lenders and we're still smart lenders. So we look at other things. We look at their revenues, make sure we understand their cash flow dynamics. And as you mentioned, make sure we put responsible debt onto their balance sheets to help them grow. You can kind of see that as we look our investment record over the last 32 years has been pretty stellar. And as seen on there, we maintain very high ARIS ratings, one of 5 CDFIs in the country to kind of, have that highest rating across all things that they measure. And I think the reason for that, there's a couple reasons for it. One, we do take quite a bit of risk in what we do, but I think we're smart about that risk. We have deeply embedded teams in the communities where we lend. We have partners like Ann Arbor Community Foundation and others, so that we try to get to know those markets. But also, if our customers hit some hiccups, we have a patient workout mindset and a solutions orientation. I think, again, that's played out over time. It's very important. Another thing that makes us unique are a few other things. We can lend as little as $10,000 and up to $7 million. So we can kind of go up and down the spectrum, do small things, and we'll get involved in some fairly large projects, 10, 15, $20 million projects, where we can come in as either a senior debt role, subordinated debt, or oftentimes we do bridge loans, against capital campaigns or government grants or other things. So lots of ways we can be flexible there. And then, as he had mentioned as well, we lend across a very wide array of nonprofits and a handful of for-profit businesses, including in the affordable housing space and early ed space. So again, pretty unique capital out there. Go ahead, Yi.
Thanks, Chris. And I just want to emphasize one of the points Chris made. So a lot of people are shocked to know that we are a commercial real estate lender that does not require appraisals. And we are pretty proud of the fact that we feel like we've stumbled upon a secret sauce. So despite this untraditional underwriting approach, we've maintained a really stellar financial standing. So ARIS is the S&P of CDFIs, and we have consistently maintained the highest rating for financial strength and impact over the last decade. And you can see here that we've consistently grown and our portfolio asset quality remains strong.
Yeah, and to date in Michigan, you can see we've closed as of 2020 just over $90 million of loans. We've been here for just over 7 years, but we've been on kind of a growth trajectory. I consistently say our region is the growth engine for IFF. Our Detroit office is the second largest in our footprint. We're opening a Grand Rapids office this year. And this past year alone, we approved over $43 million in loans. So we've been on kind of a vertical growth curve on the lending side, but also adding to our real estate consulting team, our real estate development team, and building out a pretty robust platform covering the state. To date, you can see on there, we've done 4 loans totaling just south of $2 million in Washtenaw County. I would say, we've had kind of more of a reactive stance to Washtenaw County, and what we're excited about with this investment from Ann Arbor Community Foundation and some of the partnerships that we're developing, we're excited to be much more proactive in thinking about how to get more capital on the street in Washtenaw County. The way we do that, kind of multifaceted. First and foremost, I spend a lot of time, I'll be spending a lot of time in Washtenaw County working with Jillian and the team to really understand who the players are, frankly, who kind of the centers of influence are across the community. I start spending a lot of time with them, start understanding the problems and some of the solutions and where IFF can play a unique role, and then I'll start plugging in our lenders, our real estate development team, our real estate consulting team, whatever makes sense there. And I'm really excited about working with the other CDFIs that Ann Arbor Community Foundation is investing in, and also pulling in some of our other CDFI partners as necessary. I think it's really important to create a community development ecosystem in place, and I think collectively that's what we need to work on in the coming years, is to truly build out a more robust ecosystem in Washtenaw County, and will drive success. One of the ways we've been trying to drive that success in Michigan is we created what we call the Impact Connection, which is a vehicle for community foundations and any accredited investor around the state to invest in IFF and help us deploy capital. The power of this is we've tried to, one, kind of create a community of practice so that these investors, we've started hosting meetings where they can talk with each other, understand what's going on the ground. We've also kind of simplified the reporting processes and things like that. But the most powerful part of it, I view this as a vehicle both to attract investments, but a more powerful vehicle, frankly, to deploy capital in places where we don't always look. And so what happens with this is our investors become kind of force multipliers for IFF, rather than us having lenders, all across the state, which is just not possible. We now have partners in each of the communities, like in Ann Arbor, where people are investing in us, and then kind of we have a joint mission for success and trying to not just deploy the capital invested into IFF from Ann Arbor Community Foundation, but to leverage that capital in multiples. The way IFF's balance sheet works is we're able to do that. We're able to leverage multiple sources of capital and can deploy as many deals as we find in Washtenaw County that meet our criteria. Would be able to deploy that capital. Just really quickly through here, you can see some of the loans closed in 2019, and then we'll have 2020 as the next page again. And I know folks will get this presentation, so you'll be able to take a more in-depth look. And then you can see some of the results there, and then I'll flip to Yi on the investment terms.
Yeah, so as Chris mentioned, one of the benefits that investors really appreciate is that just because you invest a certain amount doesn't mean the capital we deploy in your territory will be limited. So if you invest $50,000, we will lend to the organizations that need it with no limit. And here are our latest terms, and we're excited to be partnering with Ann Arbor and excited to cultivate this ecosystem in Washtenaw. Thank you for your time.
Okay, hi, I'm Carolyn Casson. Let me just quickly kind of, for those of you who aren't familiar with Michigan Women Forward, Michigan Women Forward is a 35-year-old statewide nonprofit that started life off as a foundation, but without an endowment, I don't think really succeeded as a foundation. And so about 6 years ago, we decided to shift gears away from giving money that we had to raise every year, which was a difficult proposition, to impact investing. And we decided to do that through micro lending and providing access to capital to women in the state of Michigan. That was a very, very appealing to our board, and also has proven to be a very effective way of helping women. And I'll tell you kind of how we try to do that. We also do some other things. For those of you who know us, we have a well-known leadership program for young women who can replace all of us someday soon, and because they're so smart and so capable, and that we've given them that support. We also invest in the celebration of women. So, you can check out those kind of things with what we do and through our exhibit hall. So the investment by the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation was really into our micro lending fund. They made an investment so that we would have loan dollars that we would be able to deploy here in Washtenaw County, and especially in areas that weren't getting a lot of micro lending support, such as Ypsilanti and rural parts of the county. So there's a slide up there about some of the people that we've invested in. These are the kind of women we target: low to moderate income women, especially minority owned businesses who cannot get access to capital through traditional methods. Our focus is that we are trying to create, and our ultimate goal is to create a diverse economy, an inclusive economy. We do that by increasing the number of women and women of color receiving capital to start businesses. We count that, every day, every week, every month, every year. Our goal, though, is to not just lend money, it's to create successful businesses for those women and make sure that through the creation of this business, they have increased economic stability and personal wealth grows and changes the current situation. So we also are trying to create a more stable and viable Michigan Women Forward by lending money out, getting it back, and we can then reuse it over and over and over again. It increases our balance sheet, and it becomes an opportunity for others to engage in this process. We do that, and most importantly, we're going to repay your money in the time frame that you choose. The investment vehicle that we've put in place is really an effective one. It's in our exhibit hall, it's in our booth, and we can send it to you by email. The investment prospectus is registered with the state of Michigan. It allows donors and investors to choose the impact they want, to choose a particular geography, and what measures you would like us to achieve and by when. So it's a very effective tool and allows you to get very granular in your impact investing. You can purchase notes for 5, 7, or 10 years. They are unsecured notes, but with the generosity of both the Fisher Foundation and the Ralph C. Wilson Foundation, who have given us $1 million together for our first $5 million worth of investments as loss reserve. So we have, they may not be secured, but they are backed by the foundations in the state. So I'm going to turn it over to the person who actually does the work, who actually finds these entrepreneurs, works with them, makes them successful, and that's Jennifer Moon. So I'll let her take tell you about what really happens.
Thank you, Carolyn. So far, my outreach efforts have been geared to women and minority business owners who are located within Washtenaw County, specifically the Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti area, who are low to moderate income. Many of these business owners have exhibited the need for business development, technical assistance, or simple access to funding. In February 2020, we collaborated with Washtenaw Community College Entrepreneurship Center to host an online webinar feature called Financing for Opportunities for Women. This webinar, we discussed the obstacles women business owners face in becoming successful, taken seriously within the business industry itself, as well as an overview to MWF and our loan program. Through this webinar, we obtained 38 pipeline leads for possible business loans. Some of the type of businesses that we invest in are landscaping, food service, as well as childcare services. The planning for our second webinar with Washtenaw Community College is underway and is anticipated for June, July 2021. Additional information will be released once the details are finalized. To date, Michigan Women Forward has provided over $148,000 to Ann Arbor Ypsilanti business owners specifically. $65,000 of that resulted from the Resilience Fund grants awarded in 2020 to businesses affected by COVID, and over $83,000 has been invested by microloans. This resulted in 9 active microloans for us. We actually just closed on our 9th one last night. Microfinancing within our ecosystem is more than just the transactional loan transaction itself. We at MWF like to wrap our arms around our entrepreneurs to ensure success, both before and after our interaction, whether it be for technical assistance or the loan program itself. We do our due diligence and preparation for all loan applications coming We work closely with our applicants on reviewing their financial projections at a granular level, provide market research, and determine their capacity to repay their debts, including MWF's loan. As I stated, we at MWF provide both pre and post-loan technical assistance with financial literacy, advertising and marketing development, cash flow projections, and business mentorship. At this time, I'd like to take a minute to showcase Forge Barbell LLC. Forge Barbell is a 100% women-owned business located in the city of Ann Arbor. Lauren has obtained a $10,000 loan with MWF that allowed her to purchase new equipment and build additional space to provide proper social distancing. In our February webinar with Washtenaw Community College, we showcased her and she was a featured speaker as she spoke to the obstacles she endured in becoming a successful business owner in a male-dominated industry. I also would like to acknowledge and thank our community partners for the support they have provided to Michigan Women Forward. In addition, at this time, I would like to open it up for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Karen Andrews. I'm the Managing Director of the Andrews Group, but I'm addressing you today as a Community Foundation trustee, the board secretary, and the chair of our Impact Investment Committee. I have worked with many nonprofits as a consultant and had the privilege of serving on nonprofit boards. I have to tell you, one of the endeavors that excites me the most is the Community Foundation's work in impact investing and our efforts to engage many partners in taking this journey with us. The opportunities are plentiful and great to make an impact through investing locally in ways that can create a more equitable economy for everyone in Washtenaw County. As Neil shared at the beginning of our time together, this is a first ever event of its kind for our community, and we believe even for other communities across the country. So thank you for being part of this pilot activity and joining us today. One of the reasons for doing a pilot is to learn and gather information on ways to expand an effort most successfully. So one of the requests we have for you today is to please share feedback with us. In addition, we'd also love your thoughts on others who might be interested in learning more about impact investment opportunities in Washtenaw County. You've heard us all say, and I will reiterate, we need many partners in this work. From investing directly to referring potential deals to our investees, there are many ways for each of us to engage. So thank you in advance for giving consideration as to how you would like to participate, as well as who else we should think about including while we're engaging folks in this work. We look forward to hearing from you and speaking with you. There were many people that wanted to join us today and people that wanted to attend all the different salon rooms, but maybe got engrossed in a conversation in one of the rooms. So we will have a recording of everything that we've done today, and we will make that available for your viewing and for you to share with others. When we come together, we can all achieve this vision for our community. With a focus on racial and social equity, all neighborhoods and communities in Washtenaw County have the same opportunity for generational human dignity with equitable access to our collective community wealth. That's what we're working towards. This concludes our formal program. Thank you again for being with us, and we hope to talk to you soon.